Man, it's been a long day. I'm going to have to bear with me. Some of this coffee. All right, excuse me. Today, I'm going to talk to you about my experience with high-speed internet moving to a rural part of the country. In my case, it's Central Florida. And I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm also going to back it up with a few facts because, like they say, opinions, everybody has them and they got something else and they're worth about the same as what other people got, everybody got. So if you can't back it up with any other data, you're really just kind of spouting and you're just being overly negative. And that's not my intent. My intent is simply to inform and educate. So I moved out to Central Florida, right around the Ocala area. It's actually called Silver Spring Shores. It's just outside of Ocala. So I assumed wrongly that I would have high-speed internet like every other place that I've lived in. And I didn't know that there's an issue in rural America and out in big suburbs regarding high-speed internet. If you don't know that, that might come as a shock to you. Because most people live in a lot of people live in urban areas, but there are millions upon millions of people who live in rural America, and they've been dealing with this issue for a long time, for decades. As long as the internet has been around, they've been dealing with this issue. And we're more dependent on the internet now than at any other point in history, especially with the rise of work from home, remote work, and that's kind of what I was depending on when I came out here, and I was kind of a rude shock to me to find out that that wasn't the case. So let me show you something real quick before I get into my story. If you notice here, this is an article from Fortune. This is talking about the great digital divide and trying to mend it. That's really important because it's something that I didn't know. If you don't know about it, I highly suggest you do a little research, especially if you're considering moving to a rural area or any kind of semi-rural area outside of a major city. There are large portions of the country that do not have high-speed internet, the high-speed internet that you might be used to and that I was used to living in a major city. So this is another article here over here at Purdue University, written by Roberto Gallardo. I hope I'm saying his name right, and I apologize. I'm most definitely butchering it. But this author here, this is a really good piece. I highly suggest you look at it. I'm gonna have the links in the bottom, in the bottom to this description here that'll have this website. But anyway, it's to Purdue University, and it shows a map of the internet or lack of internet access around the United States of America. There's something like over 40 million Americans who have had no access to broadband internet at all. And another 40 plus million Americans only have access to one ISP, and like 38 million, according to one source from that Fortune article I showed you previously, said that only 38 million Americans only have access to dial-up or DSL. And that's not going to cut it in the modern world, especially with the reliance on Zoom, remote learning, remote everything, even setting up all of your utilities, anything, any business you want to get done now in the United States, you're going to need to have internet access. It's a necessity, especially after the pandemic. Post-pandemic, it is a necessity. And arriving here, I found that we only had access to a DSL provider, which was shocking, but that would have been doable because they claimed it could be up to 50 megabytes per second. And as you know, that's not great, but you can kind of work with it. Well, the installer came out and he told me that's not accurate. You're going to be getting 1.5 megabytes per second is the only thing he could guarantee me. And to his credit, he suggested that, well, there are some satellite providers in this area for rural area, which is common in Central Florida and most likely probably other rural parts of the country, that provide internet to rural internet customers. And the two in this area are HughesNet and Viasat. And the installer let me know, he tempered my expectations that it's not going to be blazing fast, man. It'll just be something to literally get you on the internet. And he was correct. We went with one of them, and it's very expensive. I paid about 200 bucks a month, and the plan is horrible. Uh, High-speed internet is not high-speed internet. You're getting about, I got between maybe 6 and 10 megabytes per second during my high-speed data. When I didn't have that, or once I used up my allotted data, in my case it was 100 gigabytes a month, which somehow I miraculously went through a week and a half. It didn't matter how much or how little I used. Even when I went on vacation, it still be used up at around the 10-day mark. But I'm getting off topic. When when that was over, we get throttled back. And after 7 o'clock, even with the high data speed plan, we get throttled. When I use up all of my allotted gigabytes for high speed, I'd be throttled consistently. The only time I could really get, and when I say look at any kind of streaming service somewhat through a pixelated glass, like looking through a jar full of sand or something, would be at between the hours of like 6 a.m. and maybe 10 a.m., sometimes noon if I was lucky. So needless to say, this wasn't working. You know, I couldn't update my computer. I couldn't download games. I couldn't make a Zoom call. I couldn't do remote work, remote learning, remote nothing. And I started looking for other options. And there are other options based on the 5G network with Verizon and T-Mobile, for example, where they claim you can get between 33 megabytes a second and 300 megabytes a second. Now, interestingly enough, I have T-Mobile, and T-Mobile, I get 4 bars on my cell phone. On this phone right here, this old Samsung, I get 4 bars, right? So I should be able to get that service, but I can't. It's not available to this address. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. I went around and around in circles trying to figure that out. But fortunately, there was a positive to it. I was able to get on a service called Starlink, and I'm not endorsing Starlink. I'm not saying go out and get Starlink. It's just what my solution ended up being, and that's a company that's by SpaceX, run by Elon Musk. It's also a satellite company, but supposedly these satellites are in lower orbit or something like that, and they get a lower latency, whatever. I got between maybe 60 and 100 megabytes per second when I first got it. And I'm not saying that's the end all be all, because now I've had it for 2 months. I got it in July of 2022, and now we're in September of 2022, and I've noticed a steady degradation of that service. Whereas I would get on the higher end towards that 100 most of the time, you know, between 80 and 100. Every now and then it goes down to around 60. Now it's dropping consistently below 80, and it'll even hit like 50 or 40 megabytes per second download, and I can usually get right around maybe 10 up. So that's another issue. Is it going to get worse? Are they going to put data caps in the future? I don't know. But it doesn't matter, because I'm going to most likely be leaving and going back to the city I came from for other reasons. But it's been a good short-term fix. The downsides are it was it's a long waiting list. I signed up in January when I first got here, January 2022, and it took 6 months to get the dish. I had to pay for the dish. That was expensive. It was over 500 bucks. And my neighbor, who's also not from Florida and came like everybody else, wants to coming down here to the country. We want to work remote and live the life and all that, and found out the same issue with the high-speed internet. His wait is about, he told me he's for July of next year, and that was a couple months ago. So almost a year and a half. So the point of this video is not to poo-pah on the area again, but it's the challenges of rural life. And it's something that I didn't know about. Like ignorance, you know, if you don't know, how can you do better? But when you know better, you do better. And that's the whole point of me putting these little videos out. If you're thinking about moving to Central Florida or rural Tennessee, rural Texas, everybody wants to go in the country now. Well, you need to be aware of this. I'm gonna put this map up one last time. And as you can see, all these dark areas that Mr. Gallardo took the time to map out and put in here in this website, all these dark areas are where there are not a steady there's not a large amount of high-speed internet. There's a chance that you're not going to get high-speed internet there, and most of it is in rural America. Now, here, if you go 2 miles up the road, yeah, you can get high-speed internet. But if you go 2 miles past that, you're right back in satellite hell. So you're kind of rolling the dice, and it's something I wasn't aware of. But there are millions upon millions of people in rural America that are suffering with this, and this digital divide is a real thing. It's going to be a hindrance to in my opinion, to the forward momentum of this country, because we can't have two different countries. One which is an urban area where people have access to all this high tech and have access to broadband internet and can do all these wonderful things. And then you have the rural areas that aren't getting the infrastructure as far as the internet, as broadband internet is concerned, that the other parts of the country have. And rural America runs the country. We make all the stuff out here. They feed you. Like, meat doesn't just show up. It doesn't come from a grocery store. It's not grown in a vat. It's out. Some farmers out there. He has the cows, the chickens, the fields, and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of unfortunate. But I'm putting this out there just to kind of do an educational deal, let everyone know that some of the challenges that I went through, the frustrations I went through. My wife and I, we were extremely bored when we first got here. Like, it was a big culture shock. But we got through it with the Starlink deal, and that's kind of going to bridge me over until I move back. But anyway, I hope you found some kind of value through that. If you did, that's great. I appreciate you coming in here, just taking a few minutes, talking to you. And I'm glad to be back, able to do my work and not sit and look at a loading screen, because that was an unpleasant time in my life. Very unpleasant. All right, y'all take care. This is Jay, and I'm signing off.